This aircraft was supposed to be Russia's answer to Boeing and Airbus. The MC-21 promised almost everything the aviation industry cares about. But then the world around it changed. Sanctions hit. Western suppliers pulled away. Engines, avionics, materials, software, and certification became a problem overnight. Russia was forced to take a plane built with international cooperation and turn it into something almost completely domestic. That's why the MC-21 is special. So, can Russia build this modern aircraft without the West? Or is this plane about to expose how hard aviation independence really is? In 2016, Russia rolled out an aircraft that seemed to have arrived at the right time. The MC-21 was a single-aisle passenger jet built to compete with the Airbus A320neo and the Boeing 737 MAX, the two aircraft families that control the busiest part of the airline market. The MC-21 was aimed at the center of modern air travel, the kind of aircraft airlines use for domestic routes, regional routes, holiday routes, business routes, and high-frequency city pairs. That made the target dangerous. Boeing and Airbus had spent decades turning the narrow-body market into their territory. Airlines trusted their aircraft. Pilots were trained on them. Mechanics knew how to service them. Leasing companies financed them. Airports were already built around them. Then Russia showed up with a plane that promised to attack that system from the side. The MC-21 had a wide cabin, more shoulder room, larger overhead bins, and a passenger layout that could go up to 211 seats. Its composite wing was designed to cut drag and improve fuel use. Its early version used the Pratt & Whitney geared turbofan engine, one of the most advanced engines in its class. It looked cheaper than its Western rivals and more comfortable than some of them. It had a modern wing, modern systems, and a market that was already hungry for alternatives because Boeing and Airbus had long delivery backlogs. For Russia, this was a return to a field where the Soviet Union once controlled. The country that had built Tupolevs and Ilyushins wanted to prove that it could build a modern passenger jet again. But the first problem was already hiding inside the aircraft. The MC-21 looked Russian from the outside. Inside, it was still tied to the world Russia was about to lose. After the Soviet Union collapsed, Russia's aircraft industry lost its rhythm. Factories slowed down. Design bureaus lost influence. Airlines began choosing Western aircraft because they were more efficient, easier to finance, and easier to support around the world. By the 2000s, Airbus and Boeing had already taken the skies that Russia once hoped to contest. The Russian domestic market also changed. Airlines wanted jets that could compete on fuel, comfort, maintenance, and reliability. A plane could not survive on national pride alone, so the MC-21 was built as a comeback. The idea was to build a modern aircraft using the best Russian engineering, then fill the gaps with global technology. That meant foreign engines, materials, systems, and certification hopes. At the time, that made sense. Commercial aircraft are global machines. A jet built in one country can carry engines from another, avionics from another, landing gear from another, and materials from another. Airbus and Boeing also depend on global suppliers. That is how the industry works. The MC-21 followed that same rule. Its original version used Western engines. Its wings depended on foreign composite materials and equipment. Many systems came from suppliers outside Russia. This helped the aircraft move faster through development, but it also created a weakness. Russia was building a plane inside a global system that could shut its doors. The first warning came after 2014, when sanctions began affecting Russian access to some aviation materials and technology. Russia started working on replacements, especially for the composite wing. That was difficult but still manageable. Then 2022 changed the whole equation. After the invasion of Ukraine, Western sanctions hit Russian aviation hard. Aircraft sales, aircraft leasing, parts support, maintenance support, certification cooperation, and supplier access were all affected. The MC-21 was caught in the middle. A plane designed with international cooperation now had to become domestic almost by force. Russia had to replace everything that was never meant to be replaced quickly. At this point, the MC-21 was no longer about competing with Boeing and Airbus. It became Russia's emergency plan to keep its own skies alive. Russia stretches across 11 time zones. Air travel is not a luxury for many routes. It connects cities, industries, families, workers, and remote regions. Trains cannot replace every flight. Roads cannot cover every distance. So the MC-21 became bigger than its original mission. Russia was not finishing one aircraft program. It was rebuilding the aircraft while trying to save the industry around it. And that led to the hardest part of the MC-21 story, with Russia having to build the same plane twice. The most important change was the engine. The early MC-21 flew with Pratt & Whitney engines. Those engines gave the aircraft the kind of performance that made it look competitive against Western rivals. But once sanctions tightened, that path became impossible. Russia had to shift to the PD-14, a domestically built turbofan engine. That sounds like a simple swap, but it was not. An aircraft engine affects almost everything around it. A new engine can change weight, fuel burn, range, reliability, and airline confidence. The PD-14 gives Russia control over its own power plant. That is rare. Very few countries can design and build a modern commercial turbofan engine at this level. But having an engine that flies is different from having an engine that airlines trust for years of daily service. The MC-21 also had to solve its wing problem. One of the aircraft's biggest selling points was its composite wing. Composite materials help reduce weight and improve efficiency. Airbus and Boeing use them too, but Russia wanted to show it could build a high aspect ratio composite wing for a narrow-body aircraft. When access to foreign composite materials became limited, the wing became a test of the national industry. Russia had to produce its own carbon fiber, resins, and manufacturing process. This step kept the program alive, but it also increased pressure on testing and certification, because every major material change has to be proven safe. Then came the systems. Avionics, flight controls, hydraulics, cabin systems, power systems, and other components had to be replaced with Russian alternatives. Each replacement created another round of tests. Every delay pushed deliveries further away. This is why the aircraft kept slipping. There was also the weight problem. Reports have said that the fully domestic version became heavier than the earlier version with imported parts. A heavier aircraft may carry fewer passengers over long routes, burn more fuel, or lose some of the economic advantage that made it attractive in the first place. That is the uncomfortable part. Still, Russia kept pushing because there was no easy alternative. The aircraft had become the center of a much larger plan. The MC-21 will not replace Boeing and Airbus across the world anytime soon. That part is clear. Without approval from major Western regulators, the aircraft will not enter the fleets of most European or American airlines. Large leasing companies will avoid it. Many airlines outside Russia will hesitate because they need spare parts, training, maintenance support, insurance confidence, and long-term reliability data. Airlines are careful for a reason, but the bigger question is different. Can a country build a modern passenger jet outside the Western supply chain and make it work at home? That is why other countries are watching. China is already pushing the Comac C919. India has long wanted more aerospace independence. Countries across Asia, Africa, Latin America, and the Middle East are watching the pressure that comes with relying on a few suppliers for aircraft, parts, engines, and certification. The current aviation system is efficient, but it is also concentrated. Boeing and Airbus dominate narrow-body aircraft. Major engines come from a small group of companies. Certification power sits mainly with a few regulators. Spare parts and software support can become political tools when relations break down. The MC-21 exposes that weakness. For decades, globalization has made aircraft cheaper, safer, and easier to support. But sanctions showed that the same global network can become a wall. If a country loses access to that network, its aircraft industry can suddenly look fragile. This is why the MC-21 matters, even if it never becomes a global bestseller. If Russia can build enough of them to keep domestic aviation running, it proves one thing: a modern aircraft does not always have to pass through the Western system to matter. That would not destroy Boeing or Airbus. It would create a precedent. China would study it. Smaller aviation powers would study it. Governments that worry about sanctions would study it. Airlines in politically aligned markets may begin asking whether a second aviation system is possible. That is where the aircraft becomes bigger than itself. It starts as a Russian passenger jet, and then it grows into a question about who controls the future of flight.